Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on the tourism sector. Now, Egypt has been ranked as the first and the top touristic destination, according to the Swiss travel magazine Insider. Now, also, Russia will resume its flights after a few years of hiatus to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada. This is due to happen on March 28th, so that's next month. Egypt is eyeing a strong return to the tourism sector internationally as well. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start discussing our topic of discussion today, let's check out some of the main stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directing today to promote building capacities programs of the state administrative authorities' employees, starting with preparing training programs for supreme leaders and ending with training youth leaders with the aim of developing human cadres qualifications. During his meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Minister of Planning and Economic Development Saad on Tuesday, President el-Sisi instructed to modernize employment files for all governmental workers to realize the most efficient usage of available human resources. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said the meeting followed up the current implementation status of ongoing projects and plans of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. President el-Sisi gave his directives to continue studies of the coronavirus repercussions on the economic performance at the local and international levels to form expected future scenarios to guarantee better economic and monetary performances and face any obstacles that can hinder positive impacts being achieved thanks to the economic reform. The head of state discussed with the premier and the ministers details of the coronavirus crisis on many axes of the state, in addition to ongoing procedures by the government to diminish its negative impact on the economy, especially the support of unorganized workers through establishing a database for them and supplying them with work opportunities in national projects. During the meeting, President el-Sisi reviewed current efforts concerning the transfer of government's authority to the new administrative capital. And Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri described today the strong ties between Egypt and Hungary. Speaking at a joint press conference with visiting Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó following their talks in Cairo, Shukri said both sides agreed on many issues, adding that Hungary understands to a great extent the challenges facing Egypt. The top diplomat said the Palestinian issue topped the agenda of the talks with the Hungarian foreign minister as well as means of combating terrorism. Shukri noted that quelling illegal immigration and organized crime were also discussed, affirming that Egypt's efforts in countering illegal immigration is valued by Hungary and Europe. According to Shukri, 2 deals were signed between the 2 sides over developmental cooperation and cooperation between the agricultural institutes in both countries. He said Hungary extended scholarships for Egyptian students as well. Minister Shukri also said providing railway carriages for Egypt periodically was discussed during the meeting. For his part, the Hungarian foreign minister said profound ties between Egypt and Hungary are based on mutual respect and refraining from intervention in internal affairs. Szijjártó said big achievements are being witnessed at the economic level between the 2 nations, noting that the biggest project being with Egypt was in the field of developing Egyptian railways. In this respect, the Hungarian foreign minister said 1,300 railway carriages would be delivered to Egypt from Hungary, while 200 had been already received. He said Hungarian projects in Egypt include giant water pumps in Sinai and renovating Alexandria port levers. And on the health front, Minister of Health Hele Zayed and China's ambassador to Cairo, Liao Lijiang, held a joint press conference in Cairo on Tuesday over Chinese vaccines that arrived in Cairo in the early hours of the day. Minister Zayed said the targeted segments for inoculation would be expanded. For his part, The Chinese ambassador said a phone call was held on Monday between President Sisi and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping following the arrival of the vaccines. The ambassador expressed Beijing's full readiness to cooperate with Egypt in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. The health ministry earlier said the vaccine cargo contained 300,000 doses of the Chinese vaccine Sinopharm. The cargo was received by senior officials of the health ministry as well as China's ambassador to Egypt. On Monday, the health ministry reported 623 new COVID-19 infections and 51 deaths. These were some of the stories making the news today, but now let's focus on our topic of discussion. And Egypt is ranked as the top destination in the world in terms of tourist attraction. That's according to the Swiss tourism magazine Inside. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt was ranked as the first in the world as the most requested tourist destination during the current period amid the coronavirus pandemic. This is according to an opinion survey conducted by the Swiss Travel Inside magazine, which specializes in global tourism affairs. Egypt outperformed many other tourist destinations around the world, such as the Maldives, Caribbean, and other regions, despite the strict measures approved by the Swiss government to contain the coronavirus pandemic crisis. Swiss tour operators said the results are good news for tourism in Egypt, confirming that more Swiss tourists are choosing Egypt due to its geographical proximity, beautiful beaches, and year-round sunny weather. The survey prompted tour operators to reconsider marketing strategies around Egyptian tourism. The announcement of this victory was made in Egypt by the director of the Central Office overseeing Germany, Austria, and Switzerland at the Egyptian Tourism Promotion Authority. Mohammed Farag, who stated the survey will contribute to improving tourist confidence in the safety of Egypt, as well as confidence in the country's precautionary measures against the spread of COVID-19. Farag said the Swiss tour operators also confirmed the survey made tour operators reconsider the marketing of Egyptian tourism services. For his part, engineer Ahmed Youssef, the CEO of the Egyptian General Authority for Tourism Promotion, indicated the Swiss tour operators have confirmed the results of the survey are a very positive indicator for Egypt. He added they confirmed the confidence of Swiss tourists in the safety of the Egyptian tourist destinations. The precautionary measures and health safety controls taken by the government, represented by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, to confront the COVID-19 pandemic have been applied in Egyptian hotels, restaurants, museums, and archaeological sites.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here in the studio by Dr. Sameh, Saad, the former consultant to the Ministry of Tourism. Dr. Saad, thank you very much for joining us.
Great pleasure, thank you.
Dr. Saad, first of all, now, according to the Swiss magazine Travel Inside, Egypt has ranked as the top destination. I mean, we're talking about the top destination in the world. That's more than the Caribbean, higher than the Maldives. How would you say, or what would you say are the main reasons, or how did Egypt reach that top destination ranking in Switzerland, at least?
Usually the ranking goes according to the number of searches, how many searches. You know, now it's easy through the internet, Facebook, TripAdvisor, all this kind of websites. So according to the number of people who went searching for destination, the ranking comes out. It's electronically controlled, so it's easy. And of course it comes more to the number of bookings.
Yes.
The future booking. You know, now with the pandemic, we are not sure of anything, but we always book in advance and have a demand and send quotations. So this is how they can get this ranking.
Yes, and did we reach this by having how Egypt is dealing with the pandemic, having not so strict lockdowns as it happened in other countries in the world, having lower number of infections and fatalities. Is that how it is, or do they also take into account the efforts exerted by the government in terms of establishing, for instance, multiple museums around different governorates in Egypt, with the anticipation of the Grand Egyptian Museum? Is that also being taken into account?
I think this is the main reason. The main reason is now, since a year now, the name of Egypt goes around all the time. Those discoveries which we announce every week, every 10 days, you know, those great excavations and those announcing of the Grand Museum. Let me tell you, last time I traveled was last year, actually in January, before this pandemic comes. And I was in a travel fair, Fitur. It's the most important travel fair with Latin America, and it's in Spain, but this is #1 for Latin American countries. They come to Spain and discover deals and the travel business. Anytime we were walking around the fair, we were stopped. People are asking, Egyptians, yes, when the museum will open. So really, I was very happy. I was shocked of surprise that anyone stops you because you are Egyptian, then you should know everything about the museum, and people inquire and give and ask questions and things. And this was January last year. So the Egyptian Museum has been taking, and it's still taking, a big hit. People are interested to see it and know when it will happen, and to come and have a look. The discoveries, the political situation of Egypt. We have a strong position now among the other countries. President Sisi is really doing a very good job with the international world, with the other countries. Egypt has been taking good place, handling problems, we handle it in a very good way. So all this are good news, are good memories. And you know, when it comes, your name come in a positive way all the time, then you think about it. Definitely the number of treatments and the number of patients and number of people who is hit with the COVID-19, Egypt is one of the least countries having it. Especially the summer, we were almost having nothing. We didn't have any lockdown as other European countries who are badly affected now. I mean, this is all positive news gathered together, make you think, okay, when it's easy, when it's possible, let's go and see this country.
Yes.
So, and remember, we have only one pyramid around the world.
Yes. Well, Dr. Saad, now, it seemed that everyone has been interested in Egypt for the great weather, the picturesque beaches, and everyone was really focusing on the beach sort of tourism. Yes, people would go to Luxor or Aswan or go to see the pyramids and the Sphinx. But now it seems that, as you've mentioned, with the Grand Egyptian Museum and the discoveries that are taking place week in, week out, it seems that the cultural sort of tourism is starting to take that first main attraction spot as opposed to the beach tourism. Is this a fair sort of assessment, or are they still the beach resort and the beach tourism still the #1 main attraction?
The beach tourism will be always #1 main attraction. Why? Because simply you can go to the same destination many times per year. What do you need? You need sun, you need sand, you need good weather, you need good sea. So you can go to Hurghada or Sharm el-Sheikh many times. Maybe you don't need to go to the same hotel, but for you it's a new destination. And remember that the inventory of our rooms in Egypt, 76% of the rooms are between Red Sea and Sinai.
Yes.
Between mainly like Sharm and Hurghada and Marsa Alam. So by far always the beach and the leisure tourism will take a big percentage. But now if we speak about culture tourism, there was always demand, and let me really remind you, when we closed the hotels in the 21st of March last year because of the COVID, Luxor and Aswan and the Nile cruises were full. I mean, the week before, they were looking for an empty bed. And it was March, it was not New Year, it was not Easter. So the demand on culture tourism is coming back. We were expecting fantastic season. Hopefully when things calm down, we will get back again this nice season.
Yes. Well, Dr. Saad, now Cairo International Airport has received its the Airports Council International's health accreditation certificate as for how safe it is and taking all the necessary measures for travelers arriving to Egypt in the fight against the pandemic. How far is this also being reflected in Egypt becoming a top destination or a top searched destination according to the tour operators and the travel agencies around the world?
See, always positive news are coming to us. You know, we suffered from the from lack of tourism. You know, the numbers went down very bad, especially in 2016. And the main reason, it was a political.
Yes.
I mean, we didn't have anything, any bad. I mean, now we have very bad time and we still have tourists. In 2016, in total, we got 5.2 million tourism. And it was all a political, according to political situation. Now you hear every day positive news. And of course, I really want to say this, the authorities of the Cairo airport and the airports are working very hard, silently, and they are trying their best to make everything smooth without trouble with anything. I have close contact and I see many positive things in this. So all this, I think, rewarded by giving the reward to the Cairo airport.
Yes. Well, do you feel that Egypt actually started an initiative last month, the one that is Spend Your Winter in Egypt, Enjoy Your Winter in Egypt, and they had about a month of really having lower rates for the hotels and the flight tickets and everything, and it is said that 50%, there was a 50% increase in the hotel occupancies during that period. How effective do you think such an initiative is, and is it mainly targeting the international tourist or also in an effort to help strengthen and refresh the domestic tourist?
You see, the main reason that we don't receive any international tourism is because of COVID-19. And not anyone is... I was in Luxor actually last month, and I saw some tourism groups, some French and some British groups. But still, as a general international situation, really, everyone is scared to travel and they don't know the restrictions and it's bit. So now, the only and big number of travelers are the domestic tourism. This program, which was launched by Ministry of Aviation, they reduced the cost of the flight ticket to Luxor, Aswan, Hurghada, Sharm el-Sheikh and Marsa Alam, was targeting mainly the local market. Yes, it raised the occupancy of the hotels 50%, but just let me remind you that the allowed occupancy of hotels now is 50%. So it raised it to 25%, which is better because Luxor and Aswan were 7 and 8%. This is the problem, you know. I mean, problem is some destinations are hit very badly from lack of tourism. So that domestic tourism helped a little bit. I was watching yesterday, actually this morning, the occupancy in Luxor. It varies really between 20-23%. It's very low, but before it was, as I said, 5 to 7%.
Yes.
So it's coming somehow.
Well, apart from the Swiss magazine Travel Insight, there was also CNN Travel put Egypt among the top 21 destinations for 2021.
Yes, true.
Now, having all these sort of top rankings and having Egypt as a top destination, be it in Europe or be it in the States. Now, you've mentioned that there are severe lockdowns in many parts of Europe and in the US, and that affects the tourists coming here. But we're starting to see a bit of news about easing and lifting these lockdowns. The Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, yesterday announced that the the lockdown and all the measures will be lifted sometime around this summer, and we expect other countries to follow suit. So should we be expecting a huge influx of tourists during these months? Are we starting to see agencies and tour operators starting to book their travels and trips within the next few months?
This is true, and this is correct. I have friends who are working in the travel business, are giving now quotations and programs out. Let me remind you now that there is a vaccine. I mean, if you were sitting and speaking like this last month, I would tell you, I don't know, because we don't know when this will finish. It comes up and down and so on. But now there is a vaccine, and actually 5 companies are producing and more coming, and a big percentage are taking the vaccine now. So I'm sure hopefully by summer it will be easier and the traffic will be much more. And what we are all sure in the field, or the tourism field, that we will face a very high demand season. We are expecting the tourism movement will come back very good, say like this, like 70% from before by October. I mean, it wouldn't come immediately, because don't forget that a lot of people were hit economically. You know, they lost their jobs and business stopped. So we will have a traffic much better than what we have now. It will start by summer. October start to be a good peak. Hopefully we exceed the 70% and more, and slowly come back.
Yes. Well, Dr. Saad, you've been involved in the tourism business for many years, and specifically as well in the cultural tourism.
Exactly.
And now with all the museums being opened everywhere in Sharm el-Sheikh, the Grand Egyptian Museum, of course, and many governorates across the country, what would you say are the main things we should be looking out for to maximize on all these new touristic cultural facilities being offered to tourists?
What I would say really, you know, now I'm working for a public sector company, and we own 2 hotels, one in Luxor and one in Cairo. So actually I'm more focused about the culture tourism as we talk about. What we need more is to focus more on social media, highlight the new discoveries, highlight those museums, invite more the influencers, which have very high followers, and show this in a very nice way, because this is the best advertising, and it goes straight in your mind, and it keeps coming in your bucket, your bucket list. What I'm going to do? Okay, let's go and see this place. Having museums in Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada is a very good idea, because simply many tourists were coming several times, and they don't realize even that they are in Egypt. You know, what they want to see and things. Some come to Cairo to spend over the day, and in Hurghada especially some goes to Luxor and come back. Having a museum over there will make you always feel your passion to know, will make you always want to come back, will make you think of making another proper trip and Cairo, Luxor, Aswan, or on a Nile cruise. So it's a sort of advertising, live advertising, always available, you know. And let's not forget that the children all over the world, until they are 12 years, they learn the history of the pharaonics. So if you go any country of the world and you talk about the pharaohs, they can tell you Cleopatra, they can tell you Cheops, and all the kids know it. So they have it in the school. So it's in the back of the mind of everyone. So everyone wants to go and see it one day. Going to a museum makes you more interested to do it another time.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned before, you're talking now about social media and using it as a marketing tool to implement a proper marketing strategy to boost the tourism. And also, TripAdvisor, the website you've mentioned, has actually ranked Egypt's second city, Alexandria, and the biggest port, as one of the top destinations for 2021. Exactly. So does that prompt not just tourists, but also people working in the tourism field to try and maximize on, because a lot of people don't think of Alexandria as a prime touristic destination for foreign tourists, maybe for Egyptians, but using Alexandria, using the North Coast as a whole, the new Alamein city, are we also trying to maximize the use of such an area in Egypt to help boost tourism, especially in the summer?
You see, if we want to reach, because before the COVID, our aim to reach 20 million tourists in 2030, right? Mm-hmm. To reach this number, you have to find more destinations and fill those destinations. Because again, Luxor, Aswan, Sharm and Hurghada have a certain capacity of rooms and beds. And so we will never reach a high. Because, you know, traveling has a seasonality. Mm-hmm. In holidays, but like if your kids are in the school, you will not travel. So traveling is having seasonality. We don't have 100% full year round. Usually the occupancy of hotels in Egypt all over the country all year round reaches 70%. Mm-hmm. So the only way is to increase the touristic destination. Now talk about Alamein, talk about North Coast, finding new destination, making it ready with hotels, different ranking and all this. Mm-hmm. And the fastest and easiest way now is the social media. Mm-hmm. You read about a destination, it makes you interested to go and see it.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, also we've been talking as a way and a step forward to boost and re-strengthen the tourism sector. Egypt is set to receive the Russian flights coming from Russia, Moscow to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada, slated for March 28th. That's next month. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Russia has decided to resume its flights to Egypt's Red Sea airports near resorts of Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada on March the 28th after a 5-year suspension. Russia's Nordwind Airlines has submitted a request to start flights to both towns from March 28th, according to Ashraf Nouer, the head of Egypt's Civil Aviation Authority. Russian authorities approved the resumption of tourism flights to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada after a delegation of security inspectors from the Russian Ministry of Transport inspected the airport. Nouer said 2 Russian flights per week starting from March 28th, adding that a 17-member security team from the Russian Transport Ministry recently inspected the airports of the 2 resort cities and commended security measures in place there. Russian flag carrier restarted flights to Egypt's capital Cairo in April 2018. Russia had halted all regular and charter international flights with other countries at the end of March in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak. The decision was reviewed in August and the country resumed flights to Great Britain, Tanzania, Turkey and Switzerland in accordance with a number of criteria determined by the Russian Anti-Coronavirus Crisis Center. Egypt reopened airports for the international passenger flights in July 2020 after a nearly 3-month halt as part of the country's precautionary measures to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Over 100,000 tourists have visited the Red Sea resort cities of Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh from July up until August the 18th, all coming from Belarus, Ukraine, Switzerland, Hungary, and Serbia. Egyptian airport authorities announced taking all precautionary measures to counter the outbreak of the pandemic to ensure safety of passengers in accordance with the instructions from the World Health Organization and the Egyptian Ministry of Health. Measures include reducing congestion, especially at counters, areas of inspection, and in elevators. Also, flights were directly resumed between Cairo and Moscow from September 17, 2020, following a halt to services amid the COVID pandemic.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Saad. Now, Doctor, the Russian tourists have always been one of the top tourist nationalities coming to Egypt, especially to the Red Sea resort. And there's talk now about flights resuming to Egypt to the Red Sea resorts after about 5 years of suspension and hiatus. Now, can you please shed light on the importance of such an event as it happens, and how and why did it take so long? Why did it take 5 years and then now we're finally going to witness it?
Let me say first that in 2014 we received 3.5 million Russian tourists. In 2015 until October, Russia had an economic problem, the devaluation of the currency of the ruble, so we received only 2.5 from January until October. And then end of October, the unfortunate accident happened, tourism stopped. Mainly it stopped for a political reason. What was it exactly? Really nobody knows, or it was not announced. And of course Russians said we want to make sure of the safety of the airports and things, and they had many inspections. But let me remind you, we have Japanese, we have American, we have Europeans are traveling. So yeah, I mean, if it's safe, then the airport is safe for everyone. It's not only for this or that. So it was a kind of political reason. So tourism stopped for those 5 years. We lost a lot because we have huge numbers of tourists were coming. Hopefully now things will resume. We are waiting for the visit of the President Putin to announce the resuming of the flights. But it's flying already from Cairo since 2 years. In 2018, we have scheduled flights from Cairo to Moscow. It was not forbidden to travel, so we used to receive tourists as well. We received, I think, 400,000 tourists in the last years, but they were coming via European countries. But of course, then it's more expensive than going on a direct charter flights to Hurghada.
Yes, and you've mentioned 3.5 million tourists a year. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
How do you think this will change the tourism sector and really the Red Sea resorts once we receive a strong similar number of Russian tourists to Cairo,
of course,
the Red Sea?
this will help a lot the hotels. You know, we have a lot of hotels closed, we have a lot of hotels empty. I'm sure this will boost the economic. You see here, every time we speak about tourism, we think about hotel, about a taxi driver. No, we have to think there is a full community who are benefiting from tourism. Don't forget that the tourist staying in a hotel, he still eats. So the farmer is benefiting and they transport the food. So it's the whole community is benefiting from tourism. So any number help boosting the economy and create jobs and all this economical situation. So I'm sure if they start coming back, because they are eager, they have been away for 5 years, and Egypt always is a traditional destination. I mean, we cannot say, okay, they went to Maldives, they will not come back to Egypt. No, Egypt is always Egypt. Egypt has something in the heart of the Russians and most of the nationalities. What is good now, I was informed by the general manager of my hotel in Luxor. He said, we see a lot of Russians, could be Ukrainian, could be, but Russian-speaking people in Luxor. So this creates a hope that they will start doing culture tourism as well, not only leisure tourism. So hopefully soon we will start having good news.
Well, Dr. Saad, now you've mentioned, I mean, we are seen now as a top destination around the world. Now, do you feel that we actually now have a chance, since we are way ahead in these rankings than all the other touristic destinations in Europe and in the Americas and in Asia? Do you feel that now we should make use of our sort of privileged position among all the international touristic destinations?
We should actually highlight this. We should highlight those rankings. And again, it's a social media, because this is the easiest. We wouldn't, we can go and pay and make paid advertising in BBC or CNN saying we are high ranked. Costs a lot of money and you're not sure that everyone see this advert. But when you go through the social media abroad, it's there. create stories and get it as a news and move this around. Definitely our benefit will cost billions. I mean advertising will cost billions to make it.
Yes. Well, what about other markets that we don't have a big share in? I mean, you spoke earlier about Latin America, for instance. Now, we have a lot of tourists coming from the US, from Europe, in Asia as well. But what about Latin America, South America? I mean, is now a time to actually try and get a bigger share of the market there? Is there a way to attract the tourists from Latin America, or is it social media just taking care of the whole globe?
See, the main problem, the main obstacle that we are not getting our market share, our fair market share from Latin America was the flying. There was not enough flights, and it was very long, 14 and 16 hours. Now, KLM stopped flying to Egypt. It came back, unfortunately, it came back just recently in the COVID. I hope they continue. KLM was carrying a big movement from Latin America through via Amsterdam. More flight companies are coming with bigger planes, and definitely this will boost the traffic and increase the number of tourists. Don't forget that we have the Holy Family trip, رحلة العائلة المقدسة. They are very much, I mean, most of the Latin Americans are religious groups. With the proper advertising, with the proper highlighting on this trip and the availability of flights, I'm sure we will have triple and quadruple numbers from Latin Americans.
Are there other markets that we want to conquer other than Latin America? What about Australia? Are there different places as well in Asia that we still want to attract more tourists
What
from?
I'm sure is once things settle down, China really will come a lot. Because before the pandemic, before the COVID, China has been launching new airlines coming here. You know, the problem of Egypt or any destination to get traffic in tourism are the flight, especially the far destination. I mean, from here to China is 14 hours flying. So there is not so much of airlines and capacity of aeroplanes to take in. One good news that Qatar Airways starting to come back to Egypt soon. Qatar Airways were carrying very high movement from Asia, from Japan and China and Hong Kong. They were coming via Qatar, and the good thing is they used to land even in Luxor. So for Asian, he comes to Luxor and then he make his trip instead of coming all the way to Cairo and then taking a flight to Luxor, Aswan, coming back to Cairo. So hopefully when this COVID finish, we will have maybe double or triple the amount of tourism coming from Asia to Egypt, as before.
Well, what about talking about we're talking all about waiting for the lockdowns to be lifted, certain flights to resume. So we're anticipating for the future and we're prepping for it as well. But to keep the tourism industry afloat, we always also had to depend on the domestic tourists.
Always.
So what sort of offers or means of encouraging the domestic tourists to start spending their money and travel around the country and maybe go and visit the museums that were newly established and inaugurated, going to take the flights from the new airports being established and inaugurated, really, and keeping the hotel occupancies afloat, getting the buses, going to the restaurants, the whole service industry of the tourism sector. What can be done to simultaneously encourage the domestic tourist and keep the industry alive?
Let me tell you, in 2014 and 15, tourism were very slow down according to political situation at that time. The only thing we did to encourage I mean, yes, there is always domestic tourism, but the package is not in the hands of everyone. So we don't have, we always have a certain number of domestic tourism. But then at that time, the Ministry of Tourism made a program, Egypt in Our Hearts, Masr for Lubna, and simply this program was subsidizing the travel. Either they travel by bus, by train, by plane, just joke and say even by bicycle, you know, it was subsidized this. And this program has been serving 750,000 travelers, Egyptians in Egypt, and 542 travel agency has been participating in this. So imagine the number which boosts the economy, because when I go and stay in a hotel, I'm paying the tax, this VAT, and you know, the economy moves around. Now, because of the corona, really, the economical situation of a lot of us has been affected very bad. The only way to increase and double the numbers is to subsidize the program, which could go by bus, because now, like, spend your winter in Egypt is subsidizing, it's not subsidized, it's really reducing the flight. Not everyone can fly, not everyone can afford. The family of 4 or 5, they cannot do it. But they can still go by bus if it is subsidized by Ministry of Tourism. Through rules and regulation, I think this will triple and quadruple the movement. Another thing, if we speak about Luxor and Aswan, every time we mention Luxor and Aswan, we speak about culture, tombs, temples. But Aswan and Luxor have fun. You can go out in the desert with quad runners, you can ride in the fields with horses, you can go by the balloon, you can go in felucca. So if we start making a campaign highlighting the new adventures which you can do in Luxor, and highlighting, reminding people you can go in a balloon, take that chance. Now it's empty, it's cheap, you know. I mean, normally when it's normal season, if you want to go into a temple or a tomb, really you have to wait because it's full of tourism. Now it's empty. And now if we start highlighting those activities, it will attract the young people. I mean, young people will go and have fun in Hurghada, and maybe next time in Sharm, maybe in Luxor. So we are filling all our hotels and areas.
Yes. Well, Doctor, because we're running out of time, I just want to ask one final question. Now, we're always talking about how can we attract the tourists, be it international tourists or domestic tourists. But what can be done also for the people working in the industry, the people involved in the tourism industry, the investors, the travel agencies, the hotel managements? What can be done to also keep the other side of the coin, the other flip side of it, help them boost and provide better services and better quality services and better prices for tourists, be it domestic or international?
Well, actually, the Egyptian Federation for Hotels and for Rooms and Hotels is conducting already training to upgrade the level of the staff working in cooperation with Ministry of Tourism. The TVET, it's an international aid program, are going massively in training. We read very high number, 25,000 people has been getting training to upgrade their level and to upgrade their services. I am actually a board member of Faculty of Tourism of one of the universities, the public sector, of course. And they are focusing on training programs just to upgrade the level of the staff, because now it's a quiet time. So it's time to upgrade our services and levels. So I think this is a positive thing. The central bank and the banks are offering a loan with very flexible interest rate, 8%, to upgrade the hotels. So actually the government is pushing, the central bank has put £3 billion just to help the hotels to survive. So all this is happening now because we are in a situation, it's not in the hand of anyone for what's happening to us.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Saad mentioned, there are many reasons to be hopeful for the strengthening and booming of the tourism sector, be it from flights being resumed, museums opening and being inaugurated, upgrading the facilities and the personnel working within the tourism sector. So hopefully we're going to see a boost for this very integral sector for the Egyptian economy, a very strong source of foreign currency as well. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Sameh Saad, the former consultant to the Ministry of Tourism. Dr. Saad, thank you very much for joining us.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.